It's fall. The geese are headed south, and it's time for you to hit the woods. So button things up, find where they hide, and pattern the deer you seek. Come into Cabela's Great Outdoor Days and save over 20% on Herter's select grade handgun ammo. Save $180 after mail-in rebate on Walther PPS M2 pistols with instant savings of $80. And get a Vortex Diamondback 3.5 to 10x50 V-Plex rifle scope, just $149.99. Shop in-store and at Cabela's.com.
Blog Talk Radio.
Well, I bet all you people thought I was going to die last week, right, with this terrible, maddening cold / pneumonia / respiratory infection I have. Well, guess what? I don't feel that much better. However, I have lost the cough from last week, so I apologize, Mars Roberge. Obviously, we did this lovely interview, and I think I probably hacked my way through half of it. Today, hopefully, we won't have that. And it's also 6 o'clock, which means it's after 5, which means that, well, I can have a little cocktail while I'm chit-chatting away. Because my guess or assertion would be that the lovely Marilyn herself probably would have been having a cocktail sitting around shooting the breeze with a friend. So excited to be hosting Morgan today. I can't even stand it. Want to do a really fast reminder because I know he's on hold right now. 2 quick things. Tomorrow, don't forget, 3 o'clock Central Standard Time, we're going to be having another, and I'm so excited about this. I love it, love it, love it when I have indie film directors on my show. First of all, because they showcase some of the best talent around, and second of all, their ideas are innovative and interesting, so totally excited. 3 o'clock Central Standard Time tomorrow, Leonardo is coming on. He has a sci-fi TV series that he actually is doing an Indiegogo campaign for, and it's called Cyborgs, actually. I've listed the information on my personal page as well as my show page. So Leonardo will be on tomorrow at 3 o'clock Central Standard Time, and this coming Friday, Bryce is the individual who wrote, he's the director, wrote and directed, I can't talk tonight. Parrot Heads is the name of it. For any of you that might be out there who are Jimmy Buffett fans or listen to his music at one point in time in your life, you know that a parrot head is an individual who follows him. So he based an entire documentary going through 35 different cities and towns, filming people who are actual parrot heads. So I'm totally excited to get some time with him. That's 1 o'clock Central Standard Time this coming Friday. So without further ado, let's not keep Morgan holding and get him on the line. We'll start chatting. Hi, Morgan.
Hello. How you doing, Cindy?
I'm very nervous. Anytime I have somebody like you on, I get nervous. You're Canadian. You're a big deal.
Oh.
I've seen your pictures, and you look very classic Hollywood. Do you know that?
Oh, well, thank you. Actually, you're the first person to ever say that to me.
Oh, my gosh, really? Well, look at yourself. I mean, and I don't mean just like the top, because obviously, of course, your lovely bride is on the top of your Facebook page. But you do. You have that very classic Boardwalk Empire sort of back in the olden days sort of look. Very, very, I'll think of the name of it. I'm sure let me think on it. There'll be a
thank you very much. I should hire you as my manager. You can pitch me to all the casting directors.
Yeah, no kidding, right? Well, you know what, though? I'm not going to lie about this, and I'm sure you appreciate this because you're a Marilyn fan, so I'm going to suspect that means that whole generation, that whole area is as intriguing to you as it is to me. A lot of the older Hollywood, generation is gone, in terms of some of our classic actors. Like I said the other day, I think the closest thing we have to Cary Grant is maybe like a George Clooney. So I guess we should start that as our basic starting point is, why do you think that we, in terms of filmmakers and society in general, how come we're kind of getting away from the older, classic, more iconic way of doing things and starting our own generation of indie films, et cetera? Do you think that might be a good way of going in terms of the trends and things? Because we're kind of missing out on still some of the classic cinema. Do you know what I'm saying?
I do, partially. I think to some degree one has to go with the flow of each generation and what it wants to explore culturally, creatively, personally. I think that with the digital, what I call the digital revolution, there are so many tools available to people at relatively low cost to do pretty high quality productions at a fraction of the cost. So it's opened the doors to a lot of people. Now, technology alone doesn't necessarily make for awesome movies, but it's giving more independent people the chance to reach out and actually tell their stories in a way that more people are going to to watch, because like it or not, everybody will compare with the big guns out there, the big Hollywood and Bollywood and European filmmakers. They're going to say, well, this is kind of cheesy, low quality because it's whatever. It doesn't look like, Star Wars or something. But now we can actually, reach that quality. So I think that is just opening up all kinds of possibilities for people. Moving away from classic format, I'm not so sure that's happening everywhere, but I think it'll come around, kind of like bell-bottom jeans. It'll come back.
Okay.
And I like to think that Reliving Marilyn, our film, may be part of ushering some of that back in.
Oh, definitely. In fact, I myself have actually penned a screenplay, and it's going to be done actually in all black and white. I'm a huge fan of Chaplin. I'm a huge fan of black and white. I'm sure you remember The Artist when that came out. Oh, I can't even, I'm over the moon about The Artist. So I think that cinema like that, even the non-talkies, even in 2017, wouldn't necessarily be a bad thing. In fact, that's one of the things I thought of when I looked at you. I'm like, he would be a perfect non-speaking actor. Not because I don't like the way you speak, but I'm like, I bet you could pull off. Do you think you could do that? Pull off an actual non-speaking character, or have you done that?
I've done it in small ways, and my wife Nadine Banville, who plays our Marilyn, she would agree. She's one of my biggest fans. But the closest I've come to that is in my first feature film, which is called Black Coat Mob. It was inspired by the Columbine High School shooting and its effect on the goth subculture. And there's a scene in there where my character, his girlfriend gets killed on a dance floor. He's a goth guy, and he slowly puts his hand in her pool of blood. It's like it's the last time you can touch her essence. And one of my editors said, "You're a really good hand actor," he said, kind of half jokingly, but there's something in my physicality that I was trained to use my whole body as my instrument. And that's not just my face or what you see on the camera. It's the whole body. So you put my emotions into my hand. So I think that's a good indicator. Yeah, I probably would do well in silent movies.
Nice, very nice. Okay, good deal.
Yeah.
Well, we'll jump around here a little bit. Obviously, we've got the film that we want to talk about. I know you've done some other work. Now, primarily, one of the big things that we like to talk about in the show, because a lot of people that listen in are either actors already, contemplating acting, contemplating directing. So I tend to want to talk about this topic because I know myself that you were educated at York University. Now, there are some people out there that have made a great career out of like 1 year of schooling, and they did it. They've achieved everything they want to, and that's great. And now you, of course, have done some of the formal education. So as a person who performs as a writer and an actor and a director, would you encourage those that are listening in? Is a modicum of education necessary, meaning that there should be a set level, or do you think life experience is enough to kind of lend their way to get them where they want to go in one of these careers?
I would say both. The amount of formal education will vary, depends on the person. I have met some people, including our cinematographer, a wonderful, talented fellow named Derek Price, who is essentially self-taught. He never went to school formally for filmmaking, and he's actually very, very good as a cinematographer. We're very pleased with his work. Whereas I went to York University in Canada, and I went for a 4-year Bachelor of Fine Arts program. I really wanted to learn in depth all the different departments of filmmaking, from the concept, the script, and then right through to completed production. You name a department, I've worked in it. For me, it was important to do the whole thing. I think if I had to, if forced to sort of classify it, I think if you're the kind of person who likes to know a little bit at least of everything that's going on in the entire filmmaking team, or television for that matter, then it behooves you to go through a formal program where you are going to actually, have to be responsible for many different departments in the course of your studies, so that you really know what you're dealing with. But there's nothing wrong with just jumping in and learning the ropes through working with other filmmakers who are rising up, whether it's for free or some wages, and learning as you go. Life experience, of course, the other side, you can't rush it. It happens when it happens. But from a production standpoint, certainly get out there and do as much as you can. Start with the freebies, student films, and so on. I would caution anybody who is very eager and has resources at their fingertips, by that I mean money, not just people and equipment, who could go out there and say, yeah, I'm going to make a feature. It's my first movie. I would caution against that. Tell stories. Start small. Make a little 5-minute film, for example. Build up from there. Polish a nice little nugget. Tell a good story. Grow then from there. And with that, I would agree with a writer that I met years ago about the rule of 1 million. Everybody, he said, has to write 1 million words of crap before they write something that's really, really going to work. Now, as heavy-handed as that may sound, what he's trying to say is you'll write a ton before something really, really flows and is going to work on screen. So, go with what feels right for yourself. Explore, try everything.
Well, and I'm curious to ask about this, too, because one of the things that's interesting is when you did the Reliving Marilyn project, of course, you started this journey back in 2011, and last we checked, it's now 2017, which means you've actively been working on it in one form or another for 6 years. So one of the things we want to talk about first off is tolerance and patience and temperament, because obviously you get all excited about, just like I do with writing, like, oh, my God, I'm going to make this great project, right? And you're thinking this film is going to come out, and then you're like, oh, look, it's 6 years later. So obviously there's tons of people that are out there that want to chase and pursue a dream like this, make a film, etc. So talk a little bit about some of the ways meaning tell people about the process. I don't think they really get what it means to be indie, because like you made the point very clear, we're indie, we're not Hollywood, which means we need your help. You need to help us pay for it, you need to help us work on it, etc. So kind of talk a bit about the process from getting to, I wrote this cool picture, to where we are right now, meaning we have a trailer, we have this, just so people get an understanding of it's not as easy as it looks. It's obtainable, but it's not as easy as it looks.
Very true. First of all, I'll mention that I know some filmmakers who have a little bit less experience than I do, but who have managed to crank out a feature a year for the last 3 years. Wow. I haven't seen any of their work, but they've got it screened, and they seem to be getting some good feedback. They're modern pieces; they're not period pieces. That kind of helps a little, because it's different when you do a period piece like we're doing with the 50s and 60s. I think that it really depends on the person. You see, when we started in 2011 with Reliving Marilyn, we were thinking, it started with me having a nugget, a spark in my mind when I was looking at a photo of an ambulance attendant. It's easy to find online. It was anything relating to Marilyn's passing in 1962. There's an ambulance attendant pushing the gurney with her covered remains on it. And I started wondering what was going through that man's mind. Who was that guy? And I started thinking about, we know all the big players around somebody like Marilyn, but what about somebody that wasn't a big player? What was going on in their head? And I started thinking, we could make a film about this. And Nadine was very just starting in her journey with doing her tribute show as Marilyn, all the dresses, singing all her songs, and doing impersonation and so on. And I thought, well, she's into this. She loves Marilyn. She's actually a very naturally talented actress as well. And so I thought, well, maybe we can do something here. And then she told me about her makeup artist, Whitey Snyder, and the story there. I'm going to reveal everything unless some people out there might have heard the story. But and I went, oh my God, this is a true story. All right, we got to do this. And so the first year to year and a half was really polishing the script, taking our time. We have other lives, we have money to make and jobs to go to and so on. And then we brought in a co-producer on board and started building, shot a couple scenes. We stopped because we ran out of money, and then we waited several more months to then do most of the principal photography in 2014. I think that what drives me, and everybody's a little different, but what's driven me in the past and now with this is the love of the story. And it's a new level of what I heard Clint Eastwood once say. It said the story is king. Always king or queen if you like, emperor if you wish. Sure. But the story is the top. And the love that I've grown to have for Marilyn and the number of people out there that have met and or heard from or about online who adore her to this day, it sort of drove me. Okay, and it's driven Nadine too to make sure that we tell this story. So I think that for anybody out there listening, you have to believe in your story. You have to want it. You have to want to tell it. You have to want to do it justice. And then if you get it in the can, then you're looking at the post-production level. Then you've got to. That's when all the hubbub sort of calms down, and then you're basically your core filmmakers, and then whoever's on post with you, and then everybody else. It's not that they're going away on you; it's just that they're not involved now. So they're sitting and waiting. Hey, when are you going to make this film? When are you going to finish this film? And we're working, and that's the hardest part I found is post-production. It's fun. It's nice to see a scene come together, to hear my editor say, this stuff just cuts naturally. Like, you got good coverage. You know how to shoot a scene. And I said, well, thank you. I'm glad this was relatively easy to edit. And he did a brilliant job, Kevin Fletcher, our editor. And he did it for a very small amount of money, so that took a little longer. He did it in stages between his projects, which pay his bills. And then the same now with my sound editor, who is now about 2 weeks away from our first mix down. And that's been even a longer process because sound... Sure. I'll throw that in. Anybody who's starting out or even a novice by now in film, make sure you put more of your effort into getting good sound than even picture, because sound is the single biggest downfall, technically speaking, of any independent film. So it's you want to make sure you have good recordists and good equipment and good scenario, a good situation to record in. Be prepared to ADR, automated dialogue replacement, for anything key especially, or maybe the whole movie. You got to love it. You have to love your story. You have to love your people. You have to want to tell your story. That's what fuels the patience, because then you just come back to, another setback. Okay, why am I doing this? Right, it's because, in my case anyway, it's to tell this story from Marilyn's life, to do her justice, to be, hopefully, the first film that's ever been truly respectful to her image, her true self, not just go with the rumors and the Hollywood hoo-ha that's always preceded this. So that's my answer to that one.
Wonderful. Now, on that same caveat, since we're talking about that, now I know that you shot some of your scenes with the 35 millimeter. Was the entire film shot in 35 millimeter? I'm just curious from a camera standpoint, just to give us some idea, camera-wise.
Oh, well, to be perfectly clear on that, the only 35 millimeter that was shot on this was some stills. And a couple of different scenes. Some were prop photos, and others were actually in the scene in a different sense. There's a photo session. Marilyn's one of the most photographed people to ever be on the planet. So a certain percentage of the film is about, photo sessions. It just seems to be so part of her life. It permeated everything she did. So it became a storytelling technique for us. And a few of the key photos that made it in there were shot by me with a 35 millimeter. The rest of it was all on digital HD, a Canon camera. So.
I gotcha. And as it relates to, and one of the reasons I'm asking this question is I happen to actually be working on writing a filmmaking textbook. So I collect from different filmmakers their thoughts and ideas. So if you want to, one of the things I'm actually working on are camera shots right now. I'm talking about how different camera shots, different angles, using different types of cameras bring different effects. So if I were to ask Morgan as a whole, whether it be this movie or any movie he's worked on, do you have a preferred camera that you want to use, whether it's an iPhone, whether it's a 35 millimeter, and then tell me why?
Well, I was originally trained on Super 8 millimeter and then 16 millimeter. So I have I have heartstrings attached to the older days of film.
Wow.
It's actually not that long ago.
Sure.
But if it really and truly, to be perfectly honest, if I had the opportunity to, I would shoot on 16 again.
Really?
And yes, I would. There's so much you can do in post by, I mean, even the last several years, 16 was shot, especially for television. They were doing telecine transfers anyway, so people were editing online even if it was shot on film. Film just has a certain organic look to it that I haven't yet to see any digital effect copy. It can get close. But to me, I'm a bit of a purist that way. I think that the medium, what the medium is made of, does translate a little differently. Mathematicians can say the universe is all made of numbers, hence digital is just representing what we're seeing here. But I think that the emulsion levels, layers on film, are like a biochemical reaction to light creating images. That to me is more palpable. I can touch it. But at the same time, the things that I've seen about digital, the range of things that are available to filmmakers with less money, I don't want to say necessarily less skill, but sometimes that can apply, less knowledge, less experience, put it that way. They can still create really amazing images. And I think it certainly has progressed in the last, I would say definitely over the last 10 years to be perfectly viable. And if you do have the money to get like a Red Dragon, like one of the top end digital cameras, then you can go anywhere with it. So yes, I would prefer film, but I see the validity in digital technology, especially where it's heading to. So
awesome.
It's what
I'm
your
so
choice
quoting
is,
you,
is
by
whatever
the way.
you want.
So quoting you.
Pardon me?
That's awesome. I'm so quoting you right now.
Yeah.
I'm just writing this down because I'm like, yes, Morgan said this, and yes, he knows what he's talking about. And I know this only because I saw the teaser.
No
I haven't seen the other films yet, but I was like, you know what? I like that because there are some directors that I've talked to, and they would swear by an iPhone. They're like, I did this entire project, sound, clarity, the whole 9 yards, and they swear by it. And I'm standing back here, and I'm thinking, I have a crappy iPhone I'm talking to you on right now, or like an Android phone. And I'm like, I can't even imagine learning how to operate an iPhone, let alone, hey, we're going to shoot a whole movie on this. I'm thinking, how in the hell are you going to do that? You know what I'm saying? I mean, I might be back in the archaic days, but I just don't get it. I mean, I'm technological savvy, but, when it comes to film, I thought it was film and cameras and, all that other fun stuff that you do.
I really think there's two parts to my response to that. I think the first one is in researching for Reliving Marilyn, I discovered the workhorse camera of earlier Hollywood was what they call the Mich BNCR, big, massive, huge mag of film on top, 35 millimeter. And I discovered that not long ago there was a filmmaker, I think they were in Europe somewhere, I can't remember, who actually was able to procure a working BNCR and wanted to shoot an entire feature in this day and age. Although it might have been like 3 or 4 years ago, but still pretty modern, and that wanted to shoot the entire film on this, 50-odd-year-old BNCR. And why? First of all, they love the look of the film of 35 millimeter. I don't remember the stock they were choosing, but also the lenses, the feel of it. They felt it just worked for their vision. I believe it was also a period piece. So the medium they're shooting on is reflecting the era that they're depicting, which to me has very deep artistic validity. Now, in general, you talk about iPhone versus a DSLR or Red Dragon or something like that. I learned a long time ago the tools don't necessarily matter. And even I even had friends who were in the music business who years ago were going, all these musicians around me going on, I can't do this unless they have this new amplifier or this brand new guitar. And he's like, no, you can. If you can play, and you're good, then you can make music on anything. It's the same with, I think, with film. I'll say use the word film loosely, visual medium. If you can tell a story, you know how to shoot something, put it together and tell a story. It doesn't matter if it's an iPhone, DSLR, Bolex wind-up camera that can only shoot 25 seconds before you have to wind it up again. It doesn't matter. If it works for your vision and you can tell a story, then the latest toys don't really matter. I've been limited to one degree or another in every project I've done so far based on budget, but we found a way. Imagine my glee when I found out what a skateboard dolly is. I don't know if you've seen one of these. It's simple, you're using PVC piping as the rails, and you get this board with wheels on it, and stick the camera on it. And then you've got this beautiful, smooth dolly track, and we used that several times in Reliving Marilyn. And it doesn't necessarily have to cost that much. So if you're a little inventive, you want to get that moving shot, skateboard dolly is a good way to go. It's not good for everything. You're not going to get a crane shot, but, it's the crane shots are not necessarily going to. Sorry, I'm kind of going on here a bit, but let's finish with this last thought. I think about a crane shot in particular, and I go, okay, why are you doing this? Okay, somebody says, I got to have my crane shot. Could be any kind of shot. I'm just picking crane as an example. Okay, well, think about the perspective you want. Okay, is there anybody in your story that needs a sky-high perspective, or you just want to be fancy? Okay, I think about the beginning and the end of Forrest Gump, which I just saw again for the first time in ages. Okay, there's this beautiful, long, high crane shot, but they're following a feather, so it's in flight, so it makes sense. And at the end, this feather on his foot catches the wind and goes up, and they go up in this nice high dolly shot, or a crane shot. It makes sense based on what you're trying to tell, and it works with the metaphor in the film, floating through life, carried on the breeze, what are you going to discover, that kind of thing. So I always go, what works with your film? What are you trying to do? And coming full circle again back to Reliving Marilyn, people who didn't know anything about it, say, whoa, a 50s and 60s period piece? Like, how did you pull that off on a low budget? And I said, well, not everything has to be wide panoramic landscapes and scenes full of period cars and all kinds of gear. If you don't have it, zoom in, and I don't necessarily mean on the camera. I mean your whole focus of your story. Have your money shots. Set up your scenario. Like we have a beautiful 59 Cadillac in the beginning of our film. Helps set the feeling, the look. Yes, we know where we are in time. The clothing is relatively easy to get to reasonably accurate. And then we just zoom in terms of the storytelling. It's an intimate film. It's an intimate story. And then we relied on Mother Nature for the big scenes. We went to Banff, Alberta, and Niagara Falls, Canada, where Marilyn shot movies. And we focused on those two because, one, they haven't been done in film before about Marilyn, and two, we're Canadian, so why wouldn't we?
Of course. Yeah, that's a perfect segue into my next question, actually. So I want to mention to everybody that you live in Ottawa, and we have to talk about this because this blew my mind. I was looking on your page the other day, and I'm like, tell me it again. So you were going on about this saying, is this true that you actually got $100 parking ticket? Because my jaw dropped. I'm like, is he joking? Like, is that a Canadian thing? Because I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah, you saw.
I did.
Yeah,
of course I did.
That was a bizarre little thing in downtown Ottawa. It was during our rush hour time, and a little bit of it was my mistake. I saw one sign that said, after 4:30, it was fine to park there. Going further down the street, about 30 feet away from where I parked, there's a little sign saying, this is I think it was a loading zone. I'm not sure, but it was only up to 5:30. And the ticket I got was like, the clock on it said 5:05 was the time. So I was like, within half an hour of being free and clear, and this ticket person just got me at the wrong time. But I took it to court and I got it cut in half, so no big deal.
Thank God for that. Because I was like, I had a heart attack because I know that I'm big on that. I just went to the DMV. I bought a car, and I'm like, it cost me like $207. And I'm like, this is insane. So I bark about parking tickets and the DMV and this all the time. And I'm like, oh, how ironic is that? And he lives in Canada. Can't wait to go visit there, and I'm still not driving because there's no way in hell I'm paying $100 parking ticket. I'm like, oh, my God, I could see myself totally getting busted for that. So kudos to you, though, that you got that dropped off. So there's a couple of things I know about this man.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. No, go ahead, finish.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, Ottawa still really isn't that bad for the tickets, believe it or not. Toronto, where I'm from. I'm originally from Toronto. Yes, the home of the largest film festival on the planet so far.
Yes, I know.
And the ticket situation there is terrible. That's the city you don't want to drive in if you don't know it. But anyway, that's enough of that parking stuff.
No, that's okay. So most of the time when I have somebody on the show, I like to let them know that, yes, even though you are this person who does films and you direct and you write and you do all these really super cool things, you're a regular person too. So these are some of the things that I know about you that are really cool. First of all, oh, my God, if I looked at you, I would have never thought to myself, he's a Sons of Anarchy fan. Get out of Dodge. Get out. Would have never guessed it.
Oh,
you know why? Because I used to interview them, and I'm like, oh, my God.
Oh,
yeah. I'm like, how could you possibly, oh, my God. You, Sons of Anarchy? Say it ain't so. I can't see it.
Well, no, totally so. And imagine my glee when I found out that Kim Coates is Canadian.
Yes. Isn't that awesome?
Yeah,
Totally awesome.
I love his acting. He's just he's probably one of my favorite characters, as well as Flanagan, the Scottish guy.
Oh my God, I should know this. Tommy Flanagan.
Tommy Flanagan,
yeah.
Who got Flanagan. His break in Braveheart, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, no, I like him. I like him too. Yeah.
Oh, he's awesome. So I have to ask this question because I ask everybody that comes on. So this is a spoiler alert. So if any of you live under a rock and you haven't watched the finale of Sons of Anarchy, we're going to bust it right now. So I want to just check to see. I'm assuming you watched the finale. So some people come on the show, my show, and they're like, oh, my God, worst finale in the world. Now, I'm going to tell you right now, I love that finale. I mean, I loved it. I thought it was great. I just want to get your thoughts. So were you disappointed? Did it fulfill you? Were you like, hey, this is a great ending? What'd you think?
Well, do you mean specifically like the bitter end that just revolves around Jax, or what he had to do with his mother?
I think the whole season, but primarily that last episode, like the finale itself, in my opinion, personally, I think it wrapped everything up very nicely. You know, like there was really no ends that weren't resolved. You know what I mean?
I believe so too. I sat and thought about it. I'd already heard, without spoilers at the time, I'd already heard some people going, didn't like the ending. So, but when I got around to watching it, because I kind of lost track of a few episodes and I had to catch up at the very end, I watched it and I'm like, there really isn't any other way it could have happened in my mind that wouldn't look cheesy. Because the only other thing would be, okay, is this guy going to live? Okay, fine. He has to go away, otherwise he's going to jail for the rest of his life. He feels bad about what he's done. This is about Jax, of course. I thought, well, okay, what would be the best other scenario to me? And that would be that he would disappear, go away into hiding, and wait to the right time down the line to be there for his boys. Okay? But then I thought, this is too much of a, I was going to use a company name, but I won't, a greeting card type ending to a very, very brutal and in-your-face kind of series. So I think to be true to the spirit of the entire series and how they were telling the stories, first of all, but just this, he's right. He's a bad man. We all like him watching from the standpoint of a viewer, but you know, you come across somebody like that in real life, you're going to think they're a big prick. Okay, who
Right.
who goes around just shooting people because they want to and because they're cutting into your gun business? I mean, that's just. But when you watch it from this point of view on TV, oh yeah, Jax, yeah, he's pretty cool. Yeah, oh god, he's in pain, and of course the girl's going, he's really hot and everything. But at the end of the day, the character, and I kind of liken that to the story being king. That character in my mind had to die. And he knew it. He came to terms with what he'd done, and he wanted to go out in his terms, not rot in jail. So those are my reasons as to why I think it was a good ending.
Nice, very nice, and I concur with that, actually. And by the way, just so you know, I've met Katie Seagal, and I got to tell you, oh my God, completely so not Gemma. So not Gemma. I'm like, oh my gosh, she's the most delightful woman. So sweet, so lovely, so pretty, too. I mean, great looking woman, the whole nine yards. But tell me, not only does he like SOA, which I love, but you also like Star Wars. I'm such a Yoda freak. So into Yoda. I mean, I literally could have Yoda living with me and I'd be happy. So I have to ask the question. I geeked out and I refused to see Rogue One because I'm like, you know what? That's not really Star Wars to me. I know that's going to sound bad because I know, and I'm going to ask you about Rogue One because my kids are on my back. Let's go see Rogue One. I'm like, maybe I want to watch paint dry. I know that sounds bad. So you're going to tell me about Rogue One so that I'll get convinced to go because I'm like, yeah, do we have to?
Well,
okay, so how was it?
Well, I really enjoyed it. First of all, you got to know something about me as a viewer. I seem to be rare amongst filmmakers and people, but rare amongst filmmakers that if a story is good, I can look past, that was probably done with this dolly, and I think they used this key light, and it's coming in from the wrong side or whatever. I know filmmakers that can't watch movies anymore without thinking about how they shot stuff or why did they write it that way. If the story is working, I can lose myself in it. So I think of it as a gift because I'm not blocked by my own craft. Let's put it that way.
Nice.
Which I don't know. I've always been able to do that. Tell me a good story. I'm there. I can lose myself in it. Now, Rogue One. The other part of me is that I look at each film as its own entity. Yes, it may be part of a franchise, a storyline, but I look at each story. Anytime there is a successful film and its sequels, even if people don't like the sequels or prequels, I always look at it and go, but what's not to like? This is just a different story. You're expecting it to be the same as, you feel the same about it as you did when A New Hope came out in 1977. It's not going to happen because the cat's out of the bag. You've seen the sparkle and the lasers and Darth Vader and lightsabers. The bubbles burst. Now it's all about story and character and where did they go? The humans. Again, the story is king. So I didn't mind it. Rogue One, the biggest complaint I heard was, we're going to miss all those neat teen characters that they had in there. Well, sorry, spoiler alert for you maybe, but the thing is, those characters, because it's a prequel right before the film that started it all, okay, The New Hope, those characters cannot exist. They are gone. There's only a few that weren't on the front line that we see, and you go, I recognize that one. And I actually read an article, and I agreed with it not long ago, about Darth Vader coming back to the screen again in Rogue One.
Oh, my God.
And, I mean, you knew that was going to happen, so it's not really that big a spoiler, really. But how can I say more without actually giving a spoiler? I can say that you can see him probably at his most badass as Darth Vader when he wasn't Anakin prior, and I think even more so than when he was facing down with Luke in Return of the Jedi, because by then he's starting to become a little worn down. I think his character's having doubts, like he's heading past midlife, and his son is there wearing him down, saying, "I feel the good in you." Whereas at this point in time, he is totally the Emperor's puppet and bad man, and he's pretty freaking cool in the film, actually. I think it set it up beautifully. It showed the rebellion. Shows the rebellion in a new light. Let's just say it has more teeth than you think it ever did.
Really?
And yeah, more teeth, a little more cutthroat, and to the point where some people were surprised because we're used to this sort of almost, I don't want to, how to put it, not candied sort of presentation, but very clean. Well, we're the rebellion, we're all wholesome. Well, the rebellion kills people. It has to kill people in order, sometimes in order to get what it needs. It's a rebellion, right? So they get a little more in the trenches with that. That's all I can tell you there. I think if you're a true Star Wars fan, you definitely, it's worth the watch. It's definitely better than the first two prequels.
Really?
Phantom Menace and the next one where Anakin's a teen now.
I know what you're talking about.
Those two had good points to them, but most people dissed those quite a lot. They didn't mind the one where Anakin finally breaks down and becomes Darth Vader because he becomes Darth Vader. But the first two, I think Rogue One is a better in-between quel than those first two prequels. But having said that, I like where those first two went, mostly because, to me, the core of all the Star Wars universe is the Jedi. They are the spirit and of the whole universe to me. Good and bad, evil, heroic, and so on. And that makes what makes it work for me. Without the Jedi, I think you'd have a very soulless space opera.
I agree. Now, here's the real question.
Yeah.
I'm going to guess that Rogue One doesn't have. I've been complaining because, they got rid of Yoda, and they don't seem to feel it necessary to flash back to Yoda. I'm like, you can flash back all those other people or do that little whatever they do where they whoop, and all of a sudden they show up. But they don't bring my Yoda back, so I'm going to guess that Rogue One doesn't have Yoda in it either, right? No Yoda.
Well, okay, spoiler alert. I don't recall Yoda being there. I'll put it that way. And I don't recall. But you got to remember, at the end of the third prequel, where Darth Vader is basically born, okay, Obi-Wan Kenobi and Yoda goes into exile. Like they talk about we must go into hiding. Wait for the right time. We're the only Jedis left. It's basically him and Ben Kenobi. As far as they know, all the others are dead, right? Or soon will be killed. So they must go and preserve and be there for Anakin's kids in the future, because they know they could be a potential threat to the Empire, and they must nurture them and steer them the right way. So they already have a plan. So we've just seen them basically go away, because we don't see Ben Kenobi either.
Right. Oh yeah.
Okay, in Rogue One. Not that I'm recalling anyway, because they're in hiding. Kenobi's looking after, watching out for young Luke, making sure nothing's going to swoop in and scoop him up as a kid. And Leia's off with what's his name on Alderaan, I can't remember the character's name, but they become surrogate parents for her. So they're both split up and in hiding, which is again kind of playing, I would say, almost cutthroat from the Jedi. In a sense, they're not just thinking, well, let's preserve these young lives. They're going, we know these are the offspring of Anakin. Chances are they're going to be powerful with the Force. They may be our only chance to fight back in the future. Let's split them up and make sure at least one of them survives. So they're actually being very pragmatic. And that's a side of it that maybe some people don't really catch. But I think that and Yoda and Kenobi going into hiding is also very pragmatic. So Rogue One doesn't, in a sense, need them. It needs a lot of other characters that you as you watch it, you'll go, oh, them. Yeah, even if they're a smaller part, they come in, oh, yeah, there they are. And they use some digital technology, of course, to keep them looking the same. One of them is, of course, the guy that plays Tarkin. That's Peter Cushing. I mean, he died like 20 years ago. So they did a really good CGI for him. You can tell, but you can also look at it and go, it's really good CGI. But you can still look at it and go, yeah, it's CGI, but it's good CGI.
Right. Oh, I get what you're talking about. Okay, yeah. Well, now that we've covered that, I can hear these people listening to us. They're like, oh my God, they're talking about Star Wars. They're supposed to be talking about your film. We're talking about Star Wars. So let me round out that personal stuff for people, because this was another shocker. Not only was I shocked by the whole SOA thing, but you're a heavy metal fan. I'm trying to picture you rocking out to heavy metal, and I'm thinking, no, Morgan, no. I'm like, are you looking at yourself? You're so not heavy metal. I'm like, okay, this guy has a great sense of humor, huge on the whole push and dreams and passions, the whole 9 yards. All of a sudden it's like, oh yeah, I'm so not seeing you rocking out to Motley Crue. Now I'm like, what? I'm like, are you? Because I'm like, the SOA and heavy metal thing? Seriously. Okay, so you have to clarify this. You have Pippin the rabbit, you have Queen the cat. And I got confused. I want to say you have 3 cats and 1 rabbit, but it's confusing on your page. So let's just clear that up. How many pets do you have? Second of all, do they make the Marilyn movie? I hope, maybe, because they're so cute.
Any of the animals? Not ours. But first of all, well, it's one of those things with choices. We'll come back to that in a second. We have 3 cats, 2 rabbits, and a turtle. That's our menagerie.
A turtle? Holy mackerel! I didn't see the turtle anywhere.
Red-eared slider. What's that?
I didn't see the turtle anywhere, so you caught me off guard with the turtle.
Oh no, he there are pictures of him somewhere up there, but we haven't posted anything for quite a while. Mostly because he's kind of recluse now. He tends to hide in his habitat and come out when he's hungry, and that's it. He's not very sociable. But
I know one, so I get that.
In terms of the Marilyn film, Reliving Marilyn, the main reason I can say that none of our animals made it into the film is where it could have happened, because Marilyn was a huge lover of animals, and there's lots of photos of her with all kinds of different animals. It's a question of there's so much material to mine in Marilyn's life. Like even one of our main consultants, the author of the book, The Icon, The Life and Times of Marilyn Monroe, Gary Vitaco Robles, who absolutely adores her script and her film, he threw like 5 or 6 different suggestions, only 2 of which, very big ones, mind you, but 2 of which made it into our film. We went, that's a great idea. We're slipping it into the next draft, right? So, there's just so much material. We couldn't do it all. And even Gary and I talked to and said the only way to really get everything in, or try to, about the life of Marilyn Monroe would be to do, I don't know, a series that lasts as long or longer than, say, Breaking Bad. Like, I mean, you could do a whole season on every year of her life, for crying out loud. It's just once if you read. Yeah, and dig in for the real stories, not the hearsay stories and everything. Like, we don't even bother focusing on the Kennedys, for example. Imagine that. There's one reference to the president, that's it. Because it's not germane. It's not considered as germane, except that, she did go and sing for him, and she did hang out with him a couple of times that we know of. But beyond that, a lot of hardcore Marilyn fans really are have had enough with stop it with the Kennedy thing. There's a lot more to Marilyn than just her and the Kennedys, all right? So there's that. And the animals. There's one animal in the film, and that is a dog that belongs to a friend of mine. And she is a perfect stand-in for Marilyn's last pet, which was a shaggy little terrier named Maff. And Maff actually outlived Marilyn. Poor thing had to be given to a foster home after, can't remember who took him in, but so we actually have Maff in our movie, which is kind of neat, because I do not believe that's been done before either. So So,
very cool. Gotcha. Now, before we
yeah.
move back to the business side of things and the stuff you've done, we don't want to forget to mention the other personal thing, which is, folks, just in case you may not know this, Nadine Banville is the main character, or the lady who plays the main character. I just spoke to her briefly today and told her how stunning and striking I believe she is, because I believe that to be true.
Mm.
She's absolutely beautiful. You're coming up on almost 1 year anniversary with your lady love, which I think is awesome. So here's what I want to ask you about Nadine. Obviously, of course, you work together, and you look lovely together. I'm not going to lie about that. So talk to us a little bit, because there's tons of people that listen to my show that I know work together, live together, love together, etc. So first of all, I don't know how you don't kill each other. So I want to know how do you not kill one another? But most importantly, talk to your audience a bit about what it takes to be able to have a successful personal/professional relationship with the person that you love. Because honestly, in this business, I see it's challenging. I see it all the time. I'm amazed. So kudos on the almost 1 year. I'm very excited about that.
Well, thank you. That's just marriage. We've actually been together for almost 9 years.
Oh my gosh!
So we're not new to each other. We just I proposed to her back in 2012 at the 50th anniversary of Marilyn Monroe's passing, and I proposed to her in Hollywood at a special party with a lot of our Marilyn fan friends, and I actually caught her by surprise. She didn't really expect it, which is a rarity for her. She usually sees everything coming, but. In any case, we put off the wedding because we knew we were making the film. We were pushed for that. So
sure.
let's get the film at least to a certain stage of production, and then then we got to that point. Okay, let's start looking at the wedding.
Sure.
So we've actually gotten quite used to each other. How do you say that simple? I don't think you can. I think it's a journey. It depends on the dare I say the level of love between two people.
Sure.
You have to realize that love is not always the I don't mean you personally, but the general you. One has to realize that the love that's going to work in these situations is a love that is not all puppy dogs and roses and fun times. It's the okay, I really do not like what you're doing right now, but I still love you. That kind of thing. It's like the old saying, love them warts and all. When you see the person's warts, you can go, you know what, I love them. Because I love them, and I don't need to justify it or give reasons. I just love them, and be willing to help them through things, to try to boil down to, okay, what do we really want to say to each other, especially in the creative process. We've been a great support to each other, still are. It was a big challenge for Nadine to play Marilyn. I knew she'd do a great job and has done so. But this is her first feature film. She's done a little bit of other acting for fun, but this is her first feature. And she is very concerned that she would do justice to an icon like Marilyn. On that note, I want to be very specific to anybody listening, whether they know a lot about Marilyn or not, is that we both believe that no one can ever duplicate Marilyn. At best, people can get, a few facets of her really, really well, enough to let the viewers sort of escape for a little bit and go, yeah, I'm getting a Marilyn vibe here. This is working for me. A lot of people out there have been disappointed with films that try to tell parts of her life story in the past, not just because of content, but because, that actress is so not Marilyn. Well, I think that viewers, no one is ever going to duplicate her, and we know that too.
Of course.
Having said that, I'm a little biased, but I have seen only one other person who has come really close, and that's a performer named Sunny Thompson. She does a whole stage show. It's an entirely different medium than what we're doing. but she is the only other one that we feel anyway reaches into the closer anyway to the soul of Marilyn and doing her justice, being respectful to her and telling a true story, showing a real person, not just a bubble-headed icon who's painted as being a stupid gold digger. Those were some of her characters, not all stupid, mind you, but those are some of the characters she played. But, or at least they seem to be. I'm even caveating those because if you really watch and look past the soft voice that she actually really largely put on, her real voice is a lot sharper and a little bit lower. And we actually aimed for that in our film, too. Some people are surprised when they watch the trailer. They go, well, I hear some of the softness, but I hear something else, too. And I said, well, we went for a hybrid. Soft, yes, because she did speak softly, but she has an edge in her voice too, and we wanted to show again the real Marilyn. So, but anytime Nadine and I worked together as a couple on that, it was always okay. She'd be like asking me, do you feel I'm on track with this? Yes, I feel you are. If she didn't feel she was, then I'd ask why. We'd work it out. Sometimes it was a little tough, but it was always come back to why are we doing this? This dovetails with one of your earlier questions, the patience, okay? And that's the other key ingredient. You got to be patient. Sometimes I'd get flustered. She'd get flustered, get a little scared, concerned. Are we going the right way? Are we getting this? Then we come back to, usually it was me, to be honest, but that's okay. I mean, everyone has their strengths. And my strength is always, wait a minute, let's stop for a second here. Come back to why are we making the movie? Okay, to tell this special story from her life and to honor somebody that we feel made a wonderful cultural impact in the world and still is to this day. And so few people have been able to bring that forth in writing or on screen about Marilyn Monroe. So let's come back to why did we start this journey? And that always kind of settles the dust in any of our worries and concerns and go, okay, all right, yeah. And then we watch some scenes from our editor or whatever, and we go, hey, this is working, and we just go forward from there. A lot of it's preparation. If you prepared well as a filmmaker, then what you get in the stages where you go, we can't afford to shoot anymore, that's when you get the real feedback. And you go, yeah, okay, this is working. The editing is flowing. It's looking like a proper professional film. It's doing what we want it to do, and there's nothing we have to fix, quote unquote. It's working. That's when you know. Sorry, it comes late in the process, but that's when you really know you've done your homework, you've prepared it properly, stuck to your vision, and you've made it happen. So I know I kind of went into another topic there, but it's
that happens.
Teamwork.
That happens all the time, actually. One of the things that I noted was, and correct me if I'm mistaken, but didn't Nadine did some tribute shows? Did she not? Because that was your wife, right? That was actually her dressed up and doing the tribute shows, or did I mistake that?
Oh, no, absolutely. And I mentioned that earlier. She was actually part of the reason why we got on the journey. She didn't just want to do and this is a tribute to Nadine herself in the sense that she didn't want to do a caricature. Somebody suggested it to her. Hey, have you ever thought of doing like Marilyn Monroe tribute? And she's like, no, I never thought about it. And so she started her own research. Started reading. She reads very fast. She's like, oh my God, this I can relate. I know a lot of fans say that, but it's true. There's a lot of things about the real Marilyn that she could relate to in her life personally. And I think that's part of the appeal of Marilyn, even, more than 50 years after her death now, 55 is it this year, because she appealed to so many people. And Nadine found that for herself too, so she wanted to read more and found a fan community, and we started preparing the film script and everything. So she built a tribute show and wanted to do not just the usual songs, Diamonds Are a Girl's Best Friend, and the Happy Birthday song, which she did for Kennedy. She went, Well, I haven't seen. She went online on YouTube, didn't find any videos from anybody doing some of the more obscure songs that Marilyn did. Like everybody needs a daddy, that sort of thing, which is in one of her films, but for some reason a tribute artist doesn't do it. River of No Return, One Silver Dollar. These are all songs that she did. She did a whole show. She has retired it now. She did it for 7 years, and she is now pursuing her work as a jazz singer. That's artistically, that's her main focus now, is forging ahead into jazz. Nice. So she wanted to sort of go into that now. So
Very nice. Very nice. See, so we had to cover that because that's important, obviously. She's not just a leading lady in a movie. Yeah. She's your leading lady. So, of course, you have to cover that. I think that's important. Okay.
Well, absolutely. And we raised some of our money doing those shows, too, so for the film.
That's absolutely awesome. Tribute show. That's amazing.
Yeah, it was. She actually suggested it at one point, and she said, "Well, yeah, it's a great idea. Let's put on as many shows as we can get into venues and sell them out, and get people out, and have some silent auctions. And hey, if you got another talent as a filmmaker, and you can put on a show or do a reading, or I don't know, paintings or whatever else, because let's face it, even Indiegogo campaigns or Kickstarter, whatever, it can be difficult when it comes to the arts, because you look at the most successful ones, they're usually product-based, i.e., I'm inventing this new scuba diving mask. If you give me $100, you're going to get one of the first ones I make. People like things they can hold on to. They can, I'm getting a thing from this, right? So if you're raising money for a film, they get an experience with a show. They get to buy a painting. They get a photo session or whatever the thing is you have as a talent or a product to peddle that in conjunction. We also gave a little money to charities along the way, and we're still looking at that probably for the next fundraisers. We got to change tactics entirely, and basically say, hey, ride with us, and we'll split it down the middle. You
betcha. Speaking of raising money, I know at one time you were doing this. I just want to clarify because I don't want to sound like an idiot. You were actually offering the Reliving Marilyn calendar. So I want to just clarify on that. Are you still doing that? Is that still available? Can folks still get the calendar?
Not at the moment. If we find that people are posting on our Reliving Marilyn page, hey, I want a calendar, and we have enough, then we'll certainly look at making, a little late for 2017 now, but we'll look at doing one for 2018 if we get enough call for it.
Okay. I gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
I saw
we
that.
did that in
Yeah, let's throw it out there.
We did that for 2015. We were doing fundraisers still during a hiatus in shooting in 2014. So in anticipation of the new year, which is, of course, when people are thinking about calendars, we did offer them up for donations and so on, and we sold them all out. So,
gotcha. Okay. Now, so we're going to talk about, obviously, the film Reliving Marilyn. First of all, as you mentioned, you take a very different angle to this, meaning that you talk about, or the center of the film surrounds, of course, Marilyn Monroe and her relationship with a so-called regular person, meaning her makeup artist, Whitey Snyder.
Yeah.
So let's start with that. Why pick an average, ordinary relationship, outside of the fact, obviously, we know it hasn't been done before, but why, first of all, why is it important for you to establish uniqueness with your movie? I mean, obviously, there's the obvious, which is you certainly want to be different. But, Marilyn Monroe fans love Marilyn Monroe. Obviously, there's so much to learn, so much to know about her. And obviously, of course, Whitey, I wasn't sure that there was enough out there, really. Do you feel that there was enough out there for you to really embrace that character well?
Oh, yes. And actually, I've had some people ask me that question before. I've actually talked to a couple of people that actually met him in the late 80s. He passed away in 97, I believe, 1997. But I found material, and what I couldn't get, in explicit details about his aspects of his character, which wasn't much, that I couldn't lay hands on, because there's still a few interviews left with him out there on YouTube and so on. And the one's on a site called Cur Sim Porfizio. That was on Marilyn's doorstep. It's Latin. It means my journey ends here. There's a site out there called that, and it's filled with stuff you won't find anywhere else. But anyway, the interviews showed me how he spoke. He spoke a lot faster than I delivered because dramatically, I had to shift it because the man spoke like a bullet. It was kind of interesting. He was just a very quick talker. But I went as an actor, as dare I say, I'm a little bit of an empath, I guess. I studied his expression in the photos, many photos of him with Marilyn, and there was always this admiration, but not in the sense of a complete besotted fan. It wasn't like that, and it wasn't a lover. And I've had that confirmed from many sources that those two never crossed the line, which is interesting to me, because I think we're inundated in modern film and television with there's got to be a romance. There's always a romance. Why does it always have to be a romance? Why can't it be? They were in a way kind of like brother and sister. They were friends, certainly. They were obviously all professional friends. He was basically hired by her. She wanted him specifically. So there was a professional relationship there, obviously. But it was more than just that. It was also this friendship. She liked to hang out with his daughter, and because he had a daughter with his first marriage, a lady named Beverly, and so there's the thing. He married, stable, professional man who was always there for her. One of the few that was. There's only a couple others that I've heard about. One was a massage therapist that she had named Ralph. He has like a little cameo. We pay tribute to him in the movie. But he was there in a certain way, but not in the same depth, and the same amount of time. Whitey was with her entire professional career. And that would be 16 years. Yeah, 16 years effectively since her first screen test at age 20. Of course, she started earlier that with modeling and a couple little small appearances in her first movies. But a lot of people think of age 20, the first screen test with, I believe it was Phil Fox, and onward. So definitely 16 years. And largely an unsung hero. And the other thing is, too, in our journey, both Nadine and I, we found that there was this almost underlying thread amongst hardcore fans of Marilyn, that they kind of almost fancied themselves as, if I was around Marilyn at the time, I would have loved to have been her friend. I would have liked to maybe even helped her. Because if you look at hindsight being 20/20, of course, but if you study her life and a lot of the things that happened and how she was largely manipulated, she didn't start really manipulating back until almost like really in the last year of her life. She started playing up her, that's not the right term, not playing up, using her fame to reach out to her fans and get them on her side so she could be reinstated with Fox, because she was fired on a film, Something's Got to Give, film she never did finish because she died. And she didn't think that was right. She'd been treated poorly by the studio for a long time, and certainly in her feeling. And so she kind of went on a, shall I call it a passive offensive, where she went, okay, I'm going to get out there and I'm going to reach out to the people that made me famous. And she always said the fans made her famous, not the studios. And that is a fact. I can quote that with confidence. So she reached out to the people that loved her, and they, of course, came, and rallied behind her. And people started, the studio said, okay, fine, what do you want? And she named her price, not because she wanted money, but she wanted respect. And she got back in. So she was outside of that period where she kind of fought back in her own way. She pushed around by the studio and her contracts and being misunderstood and not getting good roles after a certain point. They always wanted to play the same crap. And she was on the verge of breaking out of that when the time of her untimely death. So it's a lot of people wonder where would she have gone if she continued to live, and I think she would have made some wonderful films of her own. Captain of her own ship. That's where she was headed.
I agree with you, definitely. Yeah. I note that
to
those that are listening in, of course, not only did you write this and directed it, of course you acted in it. So I always want to ask this question because some directors typically will just stick to the directing and they'll do the writing and they're like, no, there's no way I'm going to be on screen. But you obviously had a desire to participate in playing in this. So talk to your audience a bit about the complications or the creative pluses to actually doing that three dynamic, because that's an awful lot. Writing, acting, and directing, all three, that's a little tough. So what made you want to be in this film as an actor?
Oh, well, it's because I actually am an actor first and foremost. I got into filmmaking because of acting. So I've always been an actor first and foremost. Writing is close second, and directing would be a third. I discovered that I seemed to have a good hand for directing when I went to film school. Backtracking briefly to credit where credit's due, Nadine basically came up with a lot of ideas from her research for the story. I penned the screenplay, but we worked on it very, very closely together. So it wasn't strictly me. So again, teamwork would be partly how I'd answer that. To use an old martial arts adage from the masters, several attackers cannot hit you all at the same time, even if it's a millisecond between them. So the point there is you focus on one thing at a time. So even if you're doing many things, I also built props. I built my own model, life-size model of said aforementioned BNCR Mitchell camera, because we couldn't find one anywhere for under $11,000 for one that wasn't even working.
Oh my God!
So I said, I'm building one, and the mag on top for the film was actually made out of a toilet paper dispenser, believe it or not. I always like to tell people that because it's just like, I'm in a public bathroom one day and I'm going, how am I going to build the mag? And I look on the wall and I'm going, it's about the right size. I'm going to find one of those on eBay, and I did. And I modified it and I made a mag for the camera. But so it's about seeing shapes and other things and how you could build it. So I also worked on props. I worked on some costume procurement, but acting and directing. My answer was to bring on board a fabulous actor and acting coach named Shannon Lawson. She's actually won a Gemini Award up here in Canada, now called our Screen Actors, Screen Acting Awards up here in Canada. It's basically our Oscars, only much smaller.
Nice.
And she's mostly coaching now, and we brought her on board to work with Nadine and various aspects of building the character. And I asked her if she was interested in co-directing, because when I need to act, I need to take off one hat and put on another, and to use the metaphor. And I needed somebody who had eyes on what I was doing so that I could really sink into my character and be directed. Okay, and so she came on and then effectively did that for all the actors. If I wasn't in a scene or a specific shot, I would chime in if I was needing to chime in. A lot of times I let Shannon go. I'm like, I'm good with where they're going. You want to give them a note? Go for it. Because anything she did only made an actor dig a little deeper and go add another note to what they were doing, or change something to just go a little further, So honestly, if advice is sort of being asked for partially, I would say to any filmmaker out there who wants to act and direct, have somebody co-direct, or if you don't want to call him a co-director, have them call him a coach. Have somebody who's qualified, who knows what they're doing, knows how to direct, knows how to coach actors, to watch what you're doing when you are on camera, to keep you honest, because a lot of directors can't let go, or let go enough of anyway, of the technical hoo-ha going on in their brain. Oh yeah, I got to get, this is a close-up, and then the next shot's going to be this, and then, I think, we got 4 hours till we got to get out of this location, whatever it may be. They need to let go of that and be the character. That's what I feel anyway. Somebody else may be brilliant doing it a different way. Who knows? I haven't seen that yet, unless it's comedy. People who are natural at comedy, brilliant at comedy, which is truly a gift, they can shift those gears a little easier, it seems, because a lot of performers who do comedy largely really just do themselves in those situations, so they're not necessarily delving into some complete other character. There may be aspects that are different, but let's face it, a lot of comedic film is difficult to pull off, but it's not necessarily needing the same kind of hat or focus changing that I'm speaking of for drama. That's just my experience anyway. So that's what I would suggest, and that's how I handled it.
Okay. Now, I note that your soundtrack, I want to talk a bit about the soundtrack because, of course, obviously I'm a huge fan of indie musicians, etc. So tell us a little bit about who composed the music for the soundtrack and what made you select these particular musicians to work with you.
The main reason I chose them was that they were willing to work for an indie film, and they fell in love with the movie. And they fell in love with it only having watched a low resolution. Any filmmaker out there using digital will understand why you only email or WeTransfer a low res, because it's too fat a file otherwise. Low res with time code, incomplete sound, no ADR yet, and explain that to them because they need to see the movie for the flow and the feeling. And even still, they fell in love with it. And I thought, wow, if they're falling in love with it in this stage, and it's not even a polished gem yet, then we're on the right track. The first composer is a man named Giovanni Bonura, and he's from northern Italy. And nice. The man is brilliant. The man is totally brilliant. And the other composer is a young new composer named David Obaniyi. It's Obaniyi. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing it correctly, but anyway, both of them are easily findable on Facebook. And they both met, as it were, online, and we did three-way chat. And they agreed, yeah, no problem. I kind of reached out and got response first from David and then from Giovanni, sort of bam, bam, one after the other. And I heard both of their music and then, you know what, both of you guys, I want both of you. Are you willing to share, in a sense, the credit, the glory, the work, the opportunity? And they both said, sure. So I sent them, I had a list of all the scenes by number. And I basically they both said, oh, I would really like to do that one. And usually the other would say, yeah, no problem. I want to do these two. Oh, okay, yeah, no problem. Go ahead. And that's how we split it up. And just the feeling, the soul in their music, they really understood the emotional content of our film, and pulled it out into the music. So the music takes already, even in the raw, a very raw emotional film, and then just almost like turns up the volume on it. Which is, to my mind anyway, the ideal position for a film to be in. In my mind, I never want a film to not work until you put music in it. almost like it needs music. Oh, it's not sad enough, so we need to add sad sounds so it makes it feel sad. All the content needs to be there in your story and your performances and the flow of it. And then the music is it's not just the icing on the cake. It reaches into the soul, into the depths of it. But
Amen.
Yeah, exactly. It takes you off the earth and takes you up into heaven, in my opinion. And these guys both did it. Both did it.
You betcha.
Yeah. No, they're awesome.
No, this is interesting. I know that you are striving to be original and unique and out of the ordinary as it relates to the story in Reliving Marilyn. And I found it interesting. I came across something where you were recreating Marilyn's home, the archway, meaning to her home, because I had seen the pictures and you were trying to do this recreation. So my question to you is, you're obviously wanting to keep that originality with the theme and the story and the whole 9 yards, but yet there are some things that you do want to recreate as close as possible to her. So do you think that you were able to combine both uniqueness as well as originality from some of her original life? Were you able to mix that both completely and clearly so that they jive together very well? Because I love the way it looked. I thought, because I'm a huge Marilyn fan.
Well, absolutely. What makes it original is if it hasn't been done or done properly before on film. Things like one of Nadine's departments, because it relates to her character, was to make sure that the different hairstyles were accurate, or at least as accurate as we could get them. There's always a little slight difference, because hair is very, very, very hard to capture. But I feel we got an A+ on it. So different stages of her life, different films she worked on, different looks of the hair. Whereas we've seen some depictions of Marilyn before where it's always the same hairstyle all the way through. She'd even change her wigs during tribute shows sometimes. She'd do at least one change. Oh, this haircut has to be with this outfit because that's what she did. She was that particular about it. Where we bent the rules a little bit was partly because of availability and budget, i.e. she does wear the dress that Marilyn wears during her Diamonds Are a Girl's Best Friend number, but the version of the dress that she got doesn't have the giant bow on the back. She had a very small bow. For example, the hardcore Marilyn fans will definitely know what I'm talking about, including yourself. We didn't have the giant bow, but when she's wearing this dress, okay, she just finished doing Diamonds, right?
Right.
The sweater she wears for the George Barris photo shoot on Santa Monica Beach, those who are detail-oriented will notice a slight difference in the pattern on the sweater. But the sweater, the cut, and the overall look is identical otherwise, but there's a slight difference there. There's a little tiny things on up to, I guess this is a fairly large thing, although I didn't know until after we'd shot the whole film, is that Whitey in 1962, by that point, he drove a Volkswagen Beetle. He didn't drive a Cadillac that we know of. But a mint condition operational vintage 59 Cadillac was available to us for free. And even, I'm sure, in the 50s in Hollywood, people kept cars for at least 5 years, maybe more. And I also said the car is a bit of a character on its own. It's one of those cars, as you saw in the trailer, with a great big fin on it, which everyone goes, oh, definitely 50s, right? So it dates the film in terms of the time period. It's iconic. It's old. It's set in an old Hollywood scenario. It fits. The car itself told the story. Where the VW Bug, it may have been accurate, totally accurate. He rode one. I think it was even light blue, if I remember hearing after the fact. But the thing is, we today think of a different era when we see VW Beetles. We think of hippies and flower power and all that stuff. At least I do.
Oh, yeah. Right.
It's later period, even though they started making them in 55, right? So it's about that iconography as well. So where we deviate from and get a little creative, it fits for the storytelling, but does not destroy the integrity of what we're telling. If that makes, if I'm clear enough on that,
No, that makes perfect sense.
And just one last echo of that, I remember seeing an interview with Ron Howard about the making of Apollo 13. And apparently Jim Lovell, one of the astronauts, never actually said, quote unquote, Houston, we have a problem. They pulled two pieces together from two different transmissions that he made to ground control. And they said, this works better. It summarizes it as a catchphrase. And, of course, it became their slogan, Houston, we have a problem. And so that's an example. And I remember Ron saying, this is storytelling. We're still accurate, but we're kind of shaping it a little differently because it makes better sense dramatically. And as long as people are willing to flow with that and go, hey, the heart and soul and at least 98% of the facts are correct in this, and we were successful with that, definitely.
So I guess this is what I'd like you to do, to give to your listening audience, of course, without giving too much away. They certainly want a short synopsis of what Reliving Marilyn is about. And my one question beyond that is, do you think, not only do you feel that your film, do you believe that it shows the strength of the starlet herself? I oftentimes get frustrated because I watch movies that make her look very weak or very desperate. So I'm curious, do you feel that you've accomplished that? Have you made her look stronger? Obviously anybody who idolizes her already idolizes her, but I mean, was that important to you to show a stronger side of her? And more importantly, if she were here today, do you think she would like what you've done?
I think she would like what we've done, perhaps even love it. And I do believe that we are successful in showing, it depends on how you define strength. Yes, maybe not blatantly in certain scenes, but definitely it's there. A strength to, we feel she had, given some of the research we've read about her and things that she said to people earlier in her life and in journals she kept and so on, that she kind of, it seems that she knew what her fate was, although she couldn't maybe say when. But she seemed to have almost a, I'm going to say quasi-prophetic sense about her life. I know it sounds a little bit hokey to say that, but there seems to be that sort of a thread in some of her poetry as well and so on. This isn't really going to spoil anything, but we echo a poem that she wrote. We echo that in a scene in the film, which is based in something Gary Vitacco-Robles told us, but we reframed it in a different scenario in Banff, Alberta. And that is, she wrote a poem about a cobweb. And I'm paraphrasing here, that the cobweb was at one moment very, very delicate, and yet at the same time so strong. Okay, and that really, in a lot of ways, is a metaphor for her. She was very much at the mercy of a lot of forces. Again, like maybe a lot of people on the earth, but particularly her in this case. She was at the mercy of those forces, and yet so strong. A cobweb is, I think they've analyzed the material of a cobweb, and it's like, I don't know, like stronger than steel in relation to what it's actually doing and able to do, right? So so yes, we do talk about her strength and her insecurities, not so much desperation, but her insecurities. And I'm happy to tell you there is no pill popping in this movie. That is a contentious thing with a lot of people who are Marilyn experts and or fans. Marilyn had a pill problem. She had some medications that were prescribed to her, which are contentious, and that's almost another 4-hour conversation on that I won't go into.
Right.
But the one thing she did drink a lot of, it was champagne. But very, very rarely, from what we found, to the point of being out of control. She would be, pleasant and happy, but she never was like completely bombed out of her mind. I'm vaguely recalling that one person claims that they saw her like that at a private party, but that's one reference. Okay. I don't even remember who it was. I think it was later in her life too, but that's one, and it's probably hearsay. For the majority of her life, it was never to that degree. It was sort of like just pleasant enjoyment of Dom Perignon, right? So we have that in there. And again, no Kennedys, only a mention of the president. That's it.
Yay! I love it. I love it. Now,
isn't it refreshing?
It is totally refreshing. And get this. Yeah. This I love, because I read this and I saw that some of the Indiegogo proceeds you actually were giving to Holly Grove, which is the orphanage that Norma Jean had gone to. That is so cool. I was like, oh my God, that's awesome.
Yeah, there's I made primarily a donation myself at this point.
Nice.
And we have actually hopes and plans to work with them sometime this year to work with them to raise some money for them, as well as for the film. So
of course, for that
is
now.
Yeah.
That brings a big question out, which is, of course, tell us the status of where you're at in terms of, obviously, I've seen the teaser trailer. There's a teaser trailer out there, folks. It's on my page and the show page, etc. But the big question being, as it stands now, what are we looking at in terms of completion, post-production, etc.? Can you give us some kind of timeline so we know where we're standing with this?
We'll be completed by the end of next month, for sure. We're that close. There's a number of reasons why we also have to be. Our sound editor is lining up some other projects soon after that, so he's speeding the plow and getting that part done. That's really all we're working on primarily at the moment, finishing sound editing.
Okay.
And then festival submissions will start to premiere it that way. We're starting with Toronto, and it'd be great if we get in there because my mother still lives in Toronto, so I have a place to stay to get the film in. Yeah,
that's so awesome.
So so that would be cool, not just for the film, but and we are searching for a distribution deal. There are a couple of smaller distributors who are very interested in seeing a screener when we're ready.
Sure.
But the main financial block there is, and this is an aspect again for any of your filmmaker listeners, is a lot of filmmakers don't realize that getting distribution, most of the time, there are always deals that can be made, but most of the time it requires people to pony up money for errors and omissions insurance, also known as producer's insurance.
Right.
This is so no broadcaster will touch anything that isn't covered. Depending on the film and maybe who's in it, maybe a distributor will cover that for somebody, but then they're going to have a larger percentage of the proceeds as well to recoup that cost. And that can be anywhere from, the lowest I've seen for North America is $3,000. And that was part of like a group sort of policy with a co-producer. And most are usually $5,000 to $10,000 for if you're completely in charge of it yourself. And that's just the reality of the business. So that is probably our single biggest cost that we're facing next. Of course, there are a lot of new structures out there right now. Haven't even really mined half of them yet. That's something that I mentioned before, kind of echoing all the different things and departments if you're in multiple capacities. That's one that, in an ideal world, you'd have a couple people dedicated to dealing with that while you're in production. But in our case, I've looked into it at various junctures, found it a bit more, and then I got to a point where it's like, I must focus on finishing the film first. because otherwise there's too many things on the plate at once. If you go too long with that, rotating too long for a period of time, it's fine. But if you rotate too long and do a little bit, I find anyway, it starts to become taxing. So then you got to kind of set aside a couple things and go, okay, I know what I need to do there, but I'll have to do that in a couple of months, or whatever the case may be. So that's just time management, task management, and that's very important for filmmakers to keep in mind, I feel, to be able to be successful in actually getting it out there.
Without a doubt, definitely. Now,
and my first feature, Black Coat Mob, did get my first feature film, Black Coat Mob, that I mentioned earlier, did actually get distribution. It was limited. It was video on demand only in Canada, but I actually was able to do that. So I can say that I have that feather in my hat. And it was quite an eye opener to deal with that process. Your listeners may also want to know that you ought to think today, if you're going to go video on demand or streaming, make sure your budget for closed captioning, because a lot of companies want to be able to offer that for the deaf.
I didn't even think about that.
For the deaf, so they can read the closed caption of what's. For the blind description, that's a whole other level where they don't insist on that yet, because that's recording everything, of course, right? Descriptions. But at very least, most of them insist on closed captioning, so that is they have that option for certain viewers, and that has to be an exact transcript of what is said in the film. And then it's scripted out, and then you have to have somebody create that through a program. So that's something I didn't even think about. So anyway, just wanted to throw that in.
Me neither. I didn't even think about that either, as a matter of fact. And since you brought it up, I don't want to forget to mention this to the listening audience, because you did Black Coat Mob in 2012, which is an hour and 12-minute film. But then in 2013, you did Ragman, which is a 13-minute short. What I want to impose to people is, if they're listening to you, and of course, obviously, Marilyn's not done yet, can they go back anywhere and watch these other two projects that you've done?
Oh, can they? Well, Black Coat Mob currently is, I believe it's done its run.
Okay.
It's being shopped around as a part of a lot of distributors will package or catalog independent films, and they distribute that way, and people just either they pick what they want to either sell a DVD in their stores or put on their television station in whatever country around the world. So that's kind of where that's at right now. It's not on broadcast now. Ragman and Ragman 2 were both sort of not just for fun. We wanted to tell a good story, but we wanted to sort of partner with a filmmaker locally here in Ottawa to make them, to make something. Neither of us had made, he had made a fair number of independent things, but I hadn't made anything for a while, because Black Coat Mob was re-released in 2012. I actually completed it several years earlier, and that one took a long time to get to the stage in 2012. So I was itching to make something, and I'd written this short script, and he modified it with a few ideas, and we decided to make it, and then make the second one. So and that was, like I say, a little bit more of fun. The second one deals with what we call Remembrance Day. You call it Veterans Day down in the States. And it's there was a time when its importance to a lot of people was dying off, and I sort of supposed one day, well, what if nobody cared anymore? And then we have one veteran left who remembers, and the story goes from there.
Nice.
So it was a very, very much a kind of a social political statement in that one, but so.
And the last thing I want to mention is, I know you do two other things that folks might want to know about. First of all, do you even have time to do any kind of voice artist work? Because I know you've done voice, or you're capable of doing voice artist work, and God knows by listening to your voice here, clearly you almost have a better voice than I do. So I'm like, do you still do that anymore? Are you still open to that, or do you enjoy doing that? Or even time, like I said, do you even have time for that at this point?
Oh, I have a talent agent who submits me
okay.
for things that I'd be applicable for.
Nice.
Oddly enough, I mentioned earlier my hand acting. I did even a hand modeling gig for a commercial.
Cool.
Basically, my hands are putting pepperoni on a pizza. That was all I did.
That's so cool.
But yeah, I am still. I haven't done any voice work for quite a while. It's even more difficult market to break into. But yeah, I've done various cartoon voices, and you may recognize this famous buccaneer from the high seas, savvy?
Yes.
I've done that mostly as a favor to friends. It's sort of a fun thing I do on the side. I dress up in that character, just in case the copyright owner is listening. That I cannot mention that, but it's
exactly.
I've done birthday parties for friends. It's hey, it's
That's
my
cool.
boy. Can you come dressed as the captain and do that? And I go sure. And people get a kick out of the fact that I do the voice. So
Awesome.
Why not?
Of course. And we don't want to forget about, I know that you were working on a screenplay and you were going to try to turn it into a graphic novel. So is that still in progress, or is that going to be something in the future? Because I know that you mentioned that at one time.
Yeah, that's Gettysburg Continuum. That is the graphic novel is currently in development through the partner that I had on that from Ukraine Comics. That is unknown as to when that can be done. That is also actually originally a screenplay, as you mentioned, and I'm interested in shopping it around either to other filmmakers or maybe one day I'll make the film myself. But that was always intended initially to be a film. And just for your American listeners, yourself, of course, did you know that over 50,000 Canadians fought in your Civil War?
No.
Yes, most of them fought for the North because, especially about mid-war on, so definitely after Gettysburg in '63, when they started imposing a draft, because people started to see that the war was, okay, this is going on a long time and people are dying and this is not fun anymore like they thought it was at first Bull Run. And so they started having to draft people. And those who had the money could buy a replacement. And it was for $300. So, and $300 back then would be like $25,000 today in buying power. So a lot of American people filled in for rich or richer people who had the $300. They just said, oh, well, I was paid to come and take this person's place, and the U.S. Army had no problem with that. And a lot of the Canadian people wanted adventure or the money, mustered in southern Ontario and crossed the border. A lot of them mustered and joined up in Buffalo. A few thousand fought for the Confederacy. Interestingly enough, a lot of people wonder why. Well, a lot of Canadians, or at that time technically British North Americans, had already moved to the southern states. And as the best records we have show that they fought for the South because they were trying to protect their agrarian lifestyle. They weren't necessarily supporters of slavery or anything like that. They just felt that the states had the right to make their own decisions. And it's about 3,000 that they estimate, not a lot, but about 3,000 fought for the Confederacy. So it's I like to mention it to Americans whenever I can.
No kidding.
The other one is, I'm a little bit on my small soapbox now, because history is rewritten. I've met Americans. A couple of them I worked on Black Coat Mob with. My composer was from the States for that. Oh, I should say David O'Banya is from New Jersey, for one of the composers for Reliving Marilyn. So
cool.
We once again have a American composer involved as well. But back in Black Coat Mob, I mean, very talented, wonderful guy, well studied, and I said, did you know that Canada fought in World War I? And he said, I didn't know that. And I showed him pictures. He said, well, those are British doughboys, aren't they? And I said, you need to know about the Commonwealth of the United Kingdom. And that is when England went to war, automatically Canada, India, Australia, in particular New Zealand, all went to war with the Commonwealth because they were all part of the still very much so at that point, part of the British Empire. So they had all the same gear. We wore all the same things. Unless you know your specifics and your regiments, you would look at a British and Canadian soldier and not be able to tell them apart. So, and we actually lost to almost 70,000 men in World War I. World War II, we were very key in aspects of the D-Day, securing, which beach was that again? I know you guys had the tough ones, but it's not Gold. That Gold was Britain, and Sword. I think it was. I'm sorry, I'm drawing a blank. I'll drop that one.
No, that's okay.
They took one of the beaches for the offensive, and we lost about 40,000. So a lot less than America, but Canada was a small country at the time, population-wise. So,
Gotcha.
so yeah, we're very much involved, and I always like to mention it to any of my fellow Americans, but fellow human beings who happen to be Americans that
awesome.
they might like to know this, because we share a lot more common history. We share a lot more common history than a lot of people think, and this is why I'm Canadian. I know it, but I kind of don't really. I'm not really much of a nationalist. I kind of wish the border wasn't there. I kind of wish that it was one big happy North America, where we could really all be, country folk together, because I feel a really strong connection to, people from anywhere. If I connect to them, I connect to them.
Exactly.
So.
I agree.
Yeah.
Definitely. Now I'm going to read off the different places where people can find you first off, because so I'll go through the list, and then when I get done, you can let me know if I've forgotten anything. Morgan has 2 different places that he's on Facebook. He has his personal page, and I'll spell his last name for you, just because, and I'm going to guess it's Blackbyrne. Did I pronounce that right? I don't want to screw it up.
Yeah, Blackbyrne, yeah.
Okay, good. Which is Blackbyrne. So he has his personal page, and of course the name of the movie again is Reliving Marilyn, which has a Facebook page. Can be found on Vimeo, YouTube, LinkedIn. The Twitter handle is @Reliving Marilyn. There's an IMDb profile both for Morgan himself as well as Reliving Marilyn. I couldn't find out. Now, do you have an Instagram for yourself or the film? For some reason, I wasn't finding that. I thought,
no, we have Pinterest. We have Pinterest.
Okay, got it.
I don't go on Pinterest very often because it was just sort of there's a small collection of photos of a real Marilyn, and then we have some key photos from the film. Just I go on there very rarely, but there is Pinterest. We have Twitter.
Okay. Yep. Which
there
we
is
got,
a Twitter
which is
account.
@Reliving Marilyn. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and of course Facebook, and then I have my actors page, Morgan Blackbyrne, actor director, and then there's the Black Coat Mob, and then there's Gettysburg Continuum, which is also on Twitter as well.
Gotcha.
Those haven't been on my major focus lately, but I cross promote through those sites, and it may be of interest to some people as well. So.
Oh, without a doubt, definitely. And I don't want to forget to ask you this. I was surprised. Now, at some point in time, are you going to develop an actual website for the film? Because I was kind of surprised. I'm like, oh, I don't see a website. So I guess I didn't know if there was a plan to do that.
Well, here's one of the things that you've pointed out the probably in terms of social media anyway. One of the only things, thankfully, that is been kind of shelved for now due to the fact that, due to the fact that we just had too much on our plate. We started a WordPress.com page a while ago, but there was nobody who really had the time to update it and manage it. And then I sort of made an executive decision, and it's something one can do these days by virtue of the fact of social media. I started to realize, do we really need a page at this point, or not a page, a site? Because everything is on the page. People go there for all their information. They can see the various posts on Twitter and photos and updates and so on there. And it seemed that was doing the job. Now, a site, I think that once the film is complete and can start looking at the next phases of its journey, the official site can be then updated with, trailers and teasers. There's lots of teasers on YouTube as well.
You betcha.
So, yeah. So the teasers aren't as polished.
I just wanted to clarify.
But yeah, no problem.
Okay. Awesome. So the last two things we have to finish up here, because I've kept you probably longer than you needed to, but it went like so fast, didn't it? I'm like, oh my God, can you believe we've been talking for almost 2 hours?
I'm happy to do it, happy to share.
Right?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so the last two things I want to share before I forget is, first of all, you should know this because you've done interviews before, but in about 2 hours or so, this episode will become archived, so anybody can go back and listen to it all year round, obviously. It'll be out there. I don't want to forget to mention this. Terry Fernanho, you know him, right? Terry F. from Canada?
Yep.
We're mutual friends. Without him, I would not know you. He suggested to me, because he's been on my show, and we're good friends, he and I, and he suggested to me, you should get to know this guy, Morgan, meaning you, which led me to your wife, of course, Nadine. So I'm like, oh my gosh, so Terry, I love you, I love you, I love you. Thank you so much for bringing this wonderful man onto my show. I appreciate it more than I can tell you. Now, the last thing I do on my show is to tell you what I think of you. But before I tell you what I think of you, I do not want to forget to mention this. I think I told you this already, but my film festival is in New York City in June, end of June 23rd to 25th. Okay. So I'm wondering how much twisting and turning, because I'm like really, really in love with Marilyn Monroe more than anyone in the entire earth. Well, not anyone, but what a treasure, what a treat it would be for me to showcase this film at my festival. I would be honored if you can get it together, and if you want to think about it, etc. But I'm just throwing it out there. It would be a treasure. I mean, a true honor for me to do that. Well,
if I may respond to that, I am very interested to discuss that with you.
Yay!
And we can.
I like that.
We definitely. There's a few things I want to discuss, but yeah, absolutely. And
definitely. We'll talk about that off the show, without a doubt.
Yeah, no, definitely. But I am definitely open to that. I am definitely interested. It is since we first connected on social media. I have been curious about your festival, and it's been in my mind. So.
It's going to be fun, without a doubt.
Problem.
Absolutely.
Cool.
So the last thing, like I said, I want to do is, before I go off to my dinner here, is to tell you what I think of you. And the reason I do this in the last part of my show is to let the people that are listening in get a sense of, now that they've listened to me doing all my research, these are my impressions of you as a person and as a professional. And I think it's important that they get a little tiny glimpse of this. And this is also the only thing that I don't write. I don't script this part. This is all right from the cuff, right from the heart. So here it goes. These are my impressions of Morgan Blackbyrne. First of all, you were referred by Terry. Any person that knows Terry, has worked with Terry, has been friends with Terry, automatically off the top, that tells me immediately that you're a person of great wisdom, of great wealth and heart, and of great passionate spirit. Well, he delivered 150. I looked at you, and the first thing I thought of was, he scares the hell out of me. Why? Because he looks so serious. You remind me of Steve Buscemi. Honest to God. Steve Buscemi, only Canadian. And I'm like, oh my God, how the hell am I going to interview this person, right? I'm thinking, and then he does this film about my icon, and I'm thinking, I have to get this man on my show. I have to get this man near me. So this is what I found out while I was investigating him. He is a man of great purpose and passion, and that's the number one reason why 90% of the people get on my show. Why? Because I am a true cheerleader for anyone who is what I call a creative chameleon. You are three-way across the board: writing, producing, directing. Most importantly, you surround yourself by people who have a love of independent film and independent projects, but most importantly, of taking important subject matter and bringing a big, huge, shiny spotlight on it. If it isn't for people like you you would not be able to immortalize such a legend. You wouldn't be able to bring on screen with such purpose and such poignancy a person who touched so many hearts and so many lives. So honestly, I'm very grateful to you that you are taking someone that I love so much, bringing her onto a screen, especially in the version of your wife. And most importantly, you have talent. I trust your ability, and you seem like a lovely individual who I am crossing my fingers I can drag to New York City so I can be in a room and not be afraid of you anymore and be able to say, you're really a kick-ass person. Because I totally think you're cool. Even though you like how, the whole heavy metal thing, I'm still processing that, but you're awesome. I have loved
some
it.
heavy metal.
Exactly. If I just spent 2 hours with a guy on a Wednesday night, I'm glad it was you. And I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, Nadine. I'm sorry I kept him so long. But this has been wonderful. And truly, it's been my pleasure. And know that you can go back anytime you like to promote anything you wish because you're wonderful.
Well, thank you so much, Cindy, for your kind words on that. Sure. I just wanted to respond and say I hope you don't think I look like Buscemi. I look more like more people think I look like Willem Dafoe, actually.
Ooh, that's
go back and take a look at my photos, and I've been waiting one day for somebody to make a film where they needed an actor to play Willem Dafoe's kid brother, in a film. Willem Dafoe starring, and he has a brother. Because everybody all my life has said, you look like Willem Dafoe. And I adore that guy's acting. He's a brilliant
awesome.
actor.
Totally.
Absolutely. And
cool.
Thank you so much.
You bet.
And we'll definitely be in touch to talk about a few things, and
sure.
And let's see if we can make some stuff happen.
I would love that, absolutely. We'll stay in touch, and like I said, I'll get you the information. We'll talk about the festival, the whole bit. I've got some ideas, too, so we'll put our heads together and see what we can come up with. Now, go enjoy your night with your wife. I'm going to go have my dinner. You go enjoy your time. Thank you for giving me so much of your time, doll. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Cindy. You have a great night.
All right, dear. You too, dear. Take care.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Wasn't he wonderful and Canadian? How do you not love those Canadian people, right? Okay, so one more time, I don't want to forget to tell everybody, his name is Morgan and the last name is Blackbyrne. He has both a Facebook personal page as well as a actor-director page. And again, the last name is Blackbyrne. He can be found on Vimeo, YouTube, LinkedIn, Pinterest, IMDb. He has his personal page, of course, as a director and actor, as well as Reliving Marilyn, which is the film we were discussing. That has a Facebook page. Twitter is at Reliving Marilyn. IMDb page, as well as, obviously, of course, his two other films, Ragman and Black Coat Mob. Again, thanks so much to Morgan for all of the time. Nadine, for your input. I really appreciate that, and thanks so much for the work you're doing on the film. Again, tomorrow, 3 o'clock Central Standard Time, please tune in to listen to Leonardo and myself at 3 o'clock talking about his new sci-fi TV series, Cyborg. On that note, I'm going to go off to dinner and enjoy the rest of my evening watching more independent films from my film festival. Thanks so much to my listening audience. You are such a gem, and I would not have a program without you. I appreciate your support. I'll talk to you guys tomorrow. Take care.
It's fall. The geese are headed south, and it's time for you to hit the woods. So button things up, find where they hide, and pattern the deer you seek. Come into Cabela's Great Outdoor Days and save over 20% on Herter's Select Grade handgun ammo. Save $180 after mail-in rebate on Walther PPS M2 pistols with instant savings of $80. And get a Vortex Diamondback 3.5 to 10x50 V-Plex rifle scope, just $149.99. Shop in-store and at Cabela's.com. It's fall. The geese are headed south, and it's time for you to hit the woods. So button things up, find where they hide, and pattern the deer you seek. Come into Cabela's Great Outdoor Days and save over 20% on Herter's Select Grade handgun ammo. Save $180 after mail-in rebate on Walther PPS M2 pistols with instant savings of $80. And get a Vortex Diamondback 3.5 to 10x50 V-Plex rifle scope, just $149.99. Shop in-store and at Cabela's.com.